Alright, so I recently finished playing through Star Fox Garden Zero, so I've got some gameplay of Guard in the background here, but yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was always kind of interested in Star Fox Guard just because, especially at the time when it was coming out, it just seemed like one of the very few experiences that could maybe not only exist on the Wii U, but take full advantage of the gamepad and TV deal and feel best on that platform, I guess. Actually, it didn't even hit me because this would have only recorded the TV screen, so well, hopefully the gameplay is still good, but yeah, you're not going to see any of the gamepad shit. And yeah, by the time I started looking to get the game, I mean, it was dirt cheap, which I think was just the general case for these games. They didn't go over as intended, and it seemed like at the time just a lot of places had more copies than they knew what to deal with. And like, honestly, when I was looking to get the game, it was only like $1 more to get it with Star Fox Zero, so I figured why not, even though, like I said, I was only interested really in this one because, like a lot of people, I just kind of thought Star Fox Zero looked like a worse version of Star Fox 64, or, even Star Fox on the SNES. So, why bother when you can just replay those games? But for $1, okay, I'll bite. I guess I'll start with Star Fox Zero. So, just recently, I was kind of in the mood for this game, and I kind of just realized, I haven't played a Star Fox game in a while. Actually, probably the last time I did was... Oh no, I'm wrong. I was actually playing, or relatively recently played, Star Fox 64 3D around the time, everything with Star Fox Zero was coming out in that. So that didn't help that situation either, but I believe I played Star Fox 2 since then, but that was still a few years ago. And it had been a while since I'd played through, the Star Fox 64 SNES story in that. I figured, you know what? Why not give it a shot? I wouldn't mind playing through it again, and why not, even if it is slightly worse, see what they attempted, experience it with, a little bit of a different twist. Overall, I mean, the game, compared to the other ones too, was not super good, I guess. But at the same time, I feel like it was better than I was expecting. I did go in with, really low expectations, so I don't think it's necessarily as bad as some people or, just certain situations with the game made it out to be. But overall, I mean, yeah, the definite consensus, I've already seen a lot with it, that I definitely want to stress right away is it definitely takes some getting used to. And hell, I played through, I didn't beat the final boss, and like the secret harder levels, I had to download a save offline to experience them, which for the most part, they weren't even worth it, to be honest. They were just sort of more difficult rehashes of other levels that weren't really that fun in their own right. If that's your thing, though, you might like them. I know I failed one of the missions I recorded. I think this is it, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Overall, something that I think doesn't really get brought up a lot with the game is that you can theoretically play without even looking down at the gamepad, which was, a big complaint for a lot of people. But if you, I think it was the select button, will actually swap the cockpit and the R-Wing view, which is honestly how I wound up playing through most of the game. Like, I think maybe some of the harder levels in, like, the last boss, you kind of can't get away with that. But for most of the game, it worked fine and didn't require, like, a steep learning curve or anything. I wasn't kicking as much as I guess I normally would in the game, though. Because, I wasn't playing optimally, but I just felt like that was more fun than actually, trying to figure out the weird control scheme. It almost makes you wonder, though. I mean, I highly doubt these games are ever going to leave the Wii U just because of their reputation. I will say that there is something salvageable from them, I believe. And you could make them work on other platforms if you really tried. Like, if you maybe rebalance some of the difficulty so you didn't need some of the precision needed to thrive at this game. I mean, it could probably work, but once again, this game's reputation is very shitty that I just don't see them doing it. I don't see, a lot of, request, demand, or sales from them, potentially doing that sort of thing. I guess I did improve, though. Yeah, this is the one I definitely failed then. I was actually kind of watching the stealth robots. I was thinking that was the one that got me, but no, it was one of the rockets. But I remember doing the Landmaster training before starting the campaign, and I had a terrible time trying to control that thing. But when I actually reached the Landmaster level, it was a good time. The boss was a little tough, but I made it through decently well, and that dreading the level based on the training wasn't needed. I will say that there were some small differences from 64 in the story. Like, I had to look it up too, but I haven't played it in a while. But Slippy crash lands on a planet in 64, but in this game it's Peppy. And actually, I thought that wasn't the only thing Slippy took from Pepe, because I must have not have heard it, or maybe it didn't play. Peppy saying, the iconic do a barrel roll in the second level. I eventually replayed it and heard it, but I just remember thinking a few levels in, I haven't heard that. And Slippy says it, I think, in the mission where you're rescuing Peppy. So that was different for me, but like I said, that may have just been entirely false. It may be some just general story elements or certain details. Nothing, too major or crazy. Like, the stuff that was different, I feel like I can probably go back to Star Fox 64, and if it played out the way it played out here, I wouldn't be surprised, other than the crash landing, because I don't know, that was just a really iconic moment. I also kind of remember some of the levels too, like the asteroid field and the snow planet where you face off against Star Wolf. I remember them not being as out of the way as they were. And I remember at least the asteroid field being a bit more of a unique, and I don't know, just more well put together, I guess. Yeah, was that the same one that got me before too? That was kind of crazy if it was the same exact one. I don't remember how far we actually were though last time. But yeah, I do sort of wonder what direction they can go in the future if they were to attempt it again, which I think they eventually at some point will. The two things that come to mind that I would say to take from, I don't know if anyone's ever seen the Lost Star Wars Battlefront 3. I think it was from the Time Splitters team. I could be wrong about that. I don't remember for sure who was originally developing it, but when they had like multiplayer matches that were a mix of ground and air, that just looks so cool, and I feel like that could work with Star Fox so well, and even the hero system of Battlefront. Like, I could just imagine, playing as, generic Cornerian or Venom soldiers, and then you can unlock, just overpowered members of Star Fox and Star Wolf from performing well. You can have a mix of that in the space combat, so it isn't, completely alienating from Star Fox. I feel like you need that mix, because I don't know if it's just me, but I just feel like that sort of space combat just doesn't seem as popular or engaging, especially from, a multiplayer perspective, which I think is the direction they should really go. It seems like each time they try to flesh out the game more, they focus a bit more on single player, and it just hasn't worked. That's not to say they can't pull it off, though. I could picture them maybe taking some notes from Nier. I don't think they'll have this big philosophical story like Nier, but if they just sort of better incorporate, all the different members of Star Fox and such, to where, you first play as Fox, but then play as Falco, and, sometimes you'll kind of be doing the same mission, but sometimes there'll be like a little twist where, Falco goes off somewhere else in the level, or maybe you're split up and he's in a different level, and you just learn different things about, what's going on. Or maybe at the very least give us, like a Star Wolf story branch, and maybe even, continue the story if you beat a couple of them. But I don't know. I don't remember. Did it start? Because in this game, you can just sort of keep replaying. Like, I think in Star Fox 64, didn't you have to do it all in one shot? So if you wanted to access other levels, you had to replay through everything. Which I get that might sort of be closer to what Nier does, but at the same time, I don't feel like Star Fox does a well enough job at that, at just sort of keeping, things with the story and the levels fresh enough. Like, you can give all the different members different abilities in that too. Plus, there's a possibility you miss the requirements and have to, start all over. And that's just a personal preference too. Some people probably like that sort of format, but I feel like in general nowadays the Nier sort of differences that I mentioned would work better. Moving on to Star Fox Guard for our conversation, something that surprised me with it was similar to Star Fox Zero. I felt like sort of the controls and stuff did take more getting used to than I was anticipating. Like I mentioned earlier about how this game was probably best fit for this console, but when I first started playing, the first thing that came into my mind is, boy, this would have been good on the 3DS. And that's just because, I don't know if it's from lack of use or what, but it's just a lot easier to move your eyes up and down on a 3DS where the screens are just sort of right there, compared to moving your entire head up and down for the gamepad versus the TV. That was more off-putting than I would have expected. And honestly, maybe an underrated reason for the lack of appeal for the Wii U's gimmick. But I was good by the end of the game, though. I do think that they could port this if they really wanted to. Like, obviously, they're not going to do a 3DS thing now, and you might be waiting for the best scenario of a new dual screen system, which I'm not sure if that'll happen anytime soon, but maybe, especially if they're working on DS Virtual Console, they'll sort of figure something out to make it doable to a certain degree. But I could even imagine them, like, if you maybe just rebalance the game a little and you take out one of the cameras and you put like a mini map or something, which is, what's on the gamepad, then maybe it could just work out. Or even if not this game, maybe a different one if it's, too much to rework. And then you just switch cameras by pressing certain buttons, because you actually only have two buttons in this game: shoot and move camera. And then putting aside weird controllers like a single Joy-Con, if you have 4 shoulder buttons, 4 face buttons, and the D-pad. It's 12 right there, 1 dedicated for shooting, and then that gives you the 11 you would need for everything else. That's even, putting aside, I don't know, future new buttons, or when you click in the thumbsticks, or even if they did a weird, almost weapon wheel-esque system, hold the button and then quickly move the other thumbstick in the direction of the numbered camera that you want. I do think you definitely need that mini map, though. That was pretty important to the overall format. So I think the best would probably just be to get rid of one of the cameras. I mean, maybe you can shrink down the main camera in the center, but I just don't know if that would work as well. I think the other option would be easier. But yeah, I mean, the game is kind of exactly what I expected, which isn't a bad thing. Just kind of a tower defense-ish game with a Star Fox story. Nothing crazy. You've probably seen a little bit of it here even. I do have one complaint. Well, I guess this part isn't a complaint, but fuck the red tank, the riot shield robot, and the UFO. They are a real pain in the ass and not super fun to deal with, but I just sort of labeled that as, just more of a challenge that didn't mesh well with me. More of a personal problem, but the issue I had is with level unlock. So it's not a super long game or anything. I think there's 5 worlds. There's 10 levels in each world plus 10 bonus levels, and you're guaranteed to get 3 of the levels. But for the other 7, you need to level up so much. And you even need to level up to get some of the special guns that you have here. And you just don't, like, I completed all the game. I completed all but one of the side missions, and I was missing 2 guns and, like, just over half of the extra missions, which I think, because there does seem to be some sort of online custom level thing that they had, but obviously that's not available anymore. I don't think Nintendo supports it yet, if they will at all. But even then, I don't like that sort of reliance to just experience all the levels, Especially now that you're pretty much just left having to grind, and to me it just isn't worth it. I'm just going to download a save and experience the rest of the levels soon with that. They're not anything too crazy. They sort of have different scenarios, like they're different from just, your typical defense, but based on the first 2 levels, it's kind of just them rotating the same gimmicks on the new levels and planet. And they all work, I suppose. Some are better than others. I particularly like I believe it was called Walkie Squawky, where you only have 2 cameras that are just sort of moving along a rail. And then you once again still have to try to defend the base, but much different circumstances, much less cameras, and once again you're moving around, you're a little obscured that way when trying to aim in that. And just generally target certain areas and such. I don't think we're going to get to it here, but I was pretty proud of the one. There's another sniper mission type where you just have limited ammo, and I'm typically terrible at that sort of thing. I did clear everything I got, but the last one I did right at the very end right here. I only had 1 miss out of, the 20 shots you had. And it was probably easy and not a big deal to some people, but I suck at precision aiming, so when I do that good at something like that, I'm happy. But yeah, I think that was actually one of the better parts of the game, was just seeing some of the different ideas they come up with to sort of shake things up and sort of have a different play style. Even, seeing what sort of new camera guns you'll unlock. A minor detail that I was kind of surprised with is, I think you saw just a little bit ago of me going through the one enemy profile, but they actually don't have profiles for the bosses for some reason, which I thought was kind of weird. Not a big deal, but just, I don't know, something I picked up on. I will just give this game credit for one thing, too, for having a relatively enjoyable credit sequence, because normally credits come on and, start playing on your phone, or you get up to do something else for a little bit. Might, Google how long it is. Sorry if, you're in the credits. I certainly understand, you or someone is in there, trying to find yourself. But that's just the way it is when you're not in the credits. Which obviously, I shouldn't be. But most of the time you need stuff like Smash Melee, or recently when I was playing through Super Monkey Ball 2, just little mini games. I feel like that's kind of best because you sort of can still see, because you're interacting with, the names and the different logos coming up in that. But here they at least gave like a unique little dance scene for just a big group of the robots. I think there was like 3 of them. 3 different scenes with various different robots. And I don't know, it's just kind of cute, and because obviously you see the robots come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and just see what sort of dance moves I guess they come up with for them. It's interesting. Like I said, it was probably one of the few times I was actually, sitting there watching a credits scene outside those cases. And actually, we're just talking about Near's another example of that. But yeah, I mean, nothing too crazy with either game. I wouldn't say, must plays. But I don't know if you have a Wii U and it's still like going for like it used to be really cheap. Maybe you can still find it really cheap and just cheaper, more local maybe markets. But I think even when I got it from eBay, when we were several years into the Switch, it was like around $5, and I no, it's not the best metric for determining worth, but I did play these games for more than 5 hours total. I think I was around the same on both. Actually, I think independently I spent more than 5 hours on each of them, probably maybe a dozen total. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know, just my thoughts on them.